Hello and welcome to Mimi's Sketchbook. Today my illustration was inspired by Paul David Tripp's book New Morning Mercies, and today is September 9th. And I tell you that date in case you'd like to follow along with me as I read his devotional book. Today in his devotions, Paul Tripp talks about vengeance. And he says, it's very tempting to take vengeance into our own hands. And we really do find it easier to make war than to make peace. And Paul Tripp sends us over to Matthew 5:43 that talks about love for enemies. And it says, "You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." Now, this whole concept of loving your enemies is hard for me to grasp, and definitely not a natural thing for me to do. And I understand that how he pours out his love on good people and evil people, and his blessings on the righteous and the unrighteous, because he's God and he's all loving. But I'm not. And as Paul Tripp said before, it's easier to make war than peace. So it was early in the morning, and the sun had just risen when I read this verse that says he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. And I thought, well, I'll go outside and see if the sun is shining on something that can help me understand this a little bit better. And I really didn't know what that was going to look like. Because it was so early in the morning, the sun was very low in the sky and shining at an acute angle so that it went under the canopy of the trees and illuminated things that normally don't get any light at all. But the rays of light were directly on this pair of old work boots. Now these boots are my son's, maybe his very first pair of work boots. And they just are so sentimental to me. I love them because they represent that he started a business when he was 17 years old, and that business has grown to be very successful. He is an excellent boss and businessman, an entrepreneur, and I'm just very proud of him and his commitment to his work and to his employees. I usually use these boots as two little planters. They're filled with dirt, and I keep them in the shade because they dry out pretty quickly, and the shade helps to keep the little bit of soil that's in them moist. As you can see, I didn't get around to planting them this year, but I think they look charming with the clover growing up out of the lacings. But I love these boots, and they really just warm my heart every time I see them. Now the low angle of the sun also illuminated something else. And yesterday, the little boy next door told me he had lost his Nerf gun bullet. It had shot into my yard. And so I searched around and he looked and we couldn't find it anywhere. But the low angle of the sun was able to reach underneath the normally very dark shaded bushes. And it acted just like a spotlight and illuminated that Nerf gun. What I had searched for the day before and couldn't find was now right there before my eyes. And it made me think that God's light will help us find what we can't find on our own. And in the same way, His grace will help us do what we can't do on our own. Back in my August 26th video, I mentioned Corrie ten Boom and talked a little bit about her life and the amazing book she wrote called The Hiding Place, which tells one of the most unforgettable stories about her and her family during World War II. And one of the main theme that goes throughout the book was taught by Corrie's older sister, Betsy, again and again, was that God loves everyone. And that is what we are to do too. Vengeance isn't in the picture at all. He just requires us to love them and to forgive them as He has forgiven us. Even if it was a sadistic guard or a brutal soldier or your neighbor who betrayed his own countrymen. Paul Tripp summarizes his lesson. He says, "Never repay evil for evil. Work to live in peace with everyone and overcome evil with good." At the end of the book, Corrie ten Boom relates another amazing story that I'm not going to relate to you because I really want you to read The Hiding Place yourself. I know I need to read it over and over again because it contains the good news that God will give us the power to do what is impossible on our own. And Corrie ten Boom beautifully explains how she was able to do that in her book. So thank you for joining me today at Mimi's Sketchbook. I hope this was an encouragement to you, and maybe you'd like to read along with me in Paul David Tripp's book. It is a great way to start the day. So thank you, and God bless.